So I am an atheist. I grew up Christian. Eventually I watched some videos, read some things. Eventually I found out that the dogmas of Christianity are not true. As a result, I became an atheist. And however, my family members, like my parents, my sisters, younger sisters, they're still strongly Christian. They grew up, well, yeah, they're evangelical, conservative Christians. So sometimes I go back and forth with them. I mean, overall, it's mostly cordial, although I think it's starting to get more emotional on their end, I think. One of the things that so it's very hard. So pretty much just today they're telling me how they met this guy. He's from Zambia. He runs a farm, I think, nearby. Hardworking guy, yeah. And he talks about how he sees God in so many things, and how one time he basically my mom and sister they were researching this guy from Zambia's story about how, so according to this guy, he was at some parking lot at a restaurant, and this guy saw this other dude. He was wearing a suit, but he was also kneeling down. Everyone thought he was crazy, according to the Zambian guy. And so the Zambian guy, he walked up to him and said, "Hey, what's going on?" And then the guy in the suit said, I've been trying to find my wedding ring. I think I lost it in this parking lot. I can't find it." The Zambian guy said, "Okay, let me pray and see if God can help me find it." So he prays, and then apparently, boom, later on, he finds the ring. And then, so according to the Zambian guy, he said, this had happened many times before. How God, I pray something and boom, I find something. My sister and mom like, see, this is evidence of God. This is evidence of Creator. Why would that God creates, that God, He gives power and the will to, if you pray to Him, then they'll find something immediately. I responded, I said, well, I mean, that is not evidence of God. I mean, humans are very pattern recognizing creatures. So if we assume God from the get-go, then of course we'll spot patterns that we assume that is from God. I mean, sure, I mean, that's lucky that he found the ring, but I mean, couldn't a Muslim or Buddhist or atheist, couldn't they also find rings too? And or they don't, you had to pray about it, or someone, a Christian, might lose a ring and they don't find it again. So if they don't find it, then is that God's will? I mean, furthermore, I told him, I was like, hey, I mean, if there's like, if it's clear that if you pray to one God, like the God of the Bible, and only that God helps you find rings or lost items, then maybe one might have a point, but ultimately that has not been demonstrated. And then my sister and my mom said, oh, they said that, how is that? They said that is a sign of God, because it's God's will. What else did they say? Sorry, I'm not the guy talking. And then, oh yeah, I told him that they talk about how God is love and stuff like that, and I said, well, how can God be good and allow? Oh no, my sister said, okay, well, it's God's will that He allowed he allowed him to find the ring, which shows that apparently God works, and then God's will does good and evil, or God's will allows evil. And I said, hold on, so a good God that's good and powerful allows evil to happen? Isn't that inherently contradictory? And my mom's like, no, hold on, what are you talking about? It's because God allows Satan to do it. So I said, no, I mean, that's inherently contradictory. I mean, so God's not powerful because God can't stop Satan. I mean, I think mom's like, well, says, do you understand it? And then I think she kind of just shifted the goalpost with that. So stupid. And at the end of the day, I don't even believe in God, Satan. It's just, one, there are plenty of problems. There's no evidence of this stuff. And two, the science and history has a far better explanation of life. And three, there's the logical conclusion makes no sense at all. So that's my issue. Now later on, I was like, you know what, whatever. Just, people are afraid to believe in God, whatever. That at the end of the day, that's their opinion. And to be honest, here's saying, like, I don't. If someone wants to believe in a God or some alien or some simulation theory, no one's against them believing that. I mean, I don't have a problem if someone's like Christian or whatever, Muslim. But the problem is when the reason why I hit at atheism is that I'm very against dogmatic and rigid thinking. That is what I'm really against, which I think causes a lot of problems. I mean, I think it clearly does not. I think that's been demonstrated many times. And then my sister, she said, hold on, so unless if you can prove and demonstrate that there's another better way to live, I think she said, I will follow that. But the way I'm living, my faith is the best way to live, and it'll work for me. And I said, hold on, so sure, it may work for you, but you're saying that it works for everyone? And she said, yes. This is, if that's what made me dogmatic, then I'm totally fine with that. My belief and my faith, it's been proven to be the best way to live for everyone. Really? That's what I said. I was like, hold on. Okay, well then hold on. I'm totally against that. That's what I said. So you think that your Christian evangelical is the best way to live for everyone? I said no. That almost took me out, but I was like, no, that's not true. Just humans are very complicated and diverse. People have all sorts of types of different lives. You can't say that only you have the right way to live. I don't think she responded to that, but basically she said, oh, whatever. And then my mom talking about how she responded to the fact that I'm against dogma and rigid thinking, and she's like, well then she said, quote, well then you'll never get to the truth. And I said, hold on, I mean, that's because you believe that since you believe in God and you believe in Jesus Christ and heaven and hell, like you think that you have, quote, the truth, when in reality life and things are more nuanced than that, and I'm totally fine with that. I mean, sure, things can be true, but like, oh, you need the truth. Again, that has not been demonstrated. It just them pushing they think they're projecting what they think is true on others, and say, oh, because I don't believe in God and Christianity, therefore I'm seeking the truth. No, I'm not. Jesus. I mean, I like to learn about different stuff. I like to learn about science and philosophy, etc., politics, sociology. I mean, I like a lot of stuff. I mean, I'm no expert at anything, but I like to learn about what experts have said on their fields. I'm not trying to seek the truth. Sure, I like to seek things that can be true. Sure, I mean, there is a kernel of truth that, yeah, I want to seek things that I want to see more knowledge and understanding, and sort of find ways to make this world a better place. It's that simple. I mean, I'm not seeking for the truth, that some sort of metaphysical, I don't know, world or truth that's always the same. So that's why. So they have this very black and white thinking. But overall, my thoughts on this. I mean, yeah, I know their beliefs. I mean, they're very anti-gay marriage, and they think marriage is between one man and one woman. They probably deny that trans people exist, and they have no knowledge about material conditions and how they shape consciousness, and they assume that some people are evil and some people are bad and wrong, and so some people are, they have good ways, they follow Christ, and all people are all depraved at the core. It's a complete oversimplification of life. I mean, yeah, if you're starving and if you have no food and water, of course people act like animals because they won't survive, darn it. So wanting to survive is a sin? I mean, gee whiz. It's a complete lack of nuance. It's a complete just rigid thinking. I'm not saying that there aren't harmful actions. I mean, I think help and harm can be a far better dichotomy, in my view. Of course, that can be nuanced about the nature of morality. They say that, oh, if you don't believe in God, therefore you have no basis for morality. But that's not true. I mean, well, first of all, their argument is that things are good and bad because God says so. Well, that's inherently circular, and also God has demonstrated in the Bible that he inflicted the world apparently, and support genocide and support send people to hell. I mean, allow slavery. Oh, but what about the good things? Well, okay, sure. I mean, don't steal, don't lie, and don't cheat. I mean, again, it's very context driven. I mean, sure, but that's not necessarily because God said it. It's humans. Humans are naturally, we've evolved over time to have these quote morals. I mean, if you look at the tribal societies, that has been demonstrated today. I can't think of the ones off the top of my head, but there's a lot of tribes that are more egalitarian, hunter-gatherers. They share food, yeah, because it makes evolutionary sense to share, to care for one another. I'm not saying it's all hunky-dory, but clearly our morals have evolved. Now, obviously, there is murder, there is killing, but again, it's again material. Our material, what's the word? Our material conditions shape our consciousness. So, oftentimes, I mean, I guess historically, if you have tribes fighting against each other, I mean, it's oftentimes for food, scarcity. I mean, it's sad, but that was just life for a while. However, it wasn't always like that. I mean, he would just assume that before there was a state or a hierarchy, there was all just madness and people were just murdering each other left, right. I'm not saying there was not that, but I think that's a complete oversimplification. And then these Christians, they ignore how agriculture shaped morals and shaped marriage. Well, I think that created marriage because soon the woman became a property, and etc. And hierarchies, and because when everyone was just in the hunting gathering areas, when people were just picking food and they're hunting, no one owned it. Like, no one had, there was no something like, this is mine, property. If you share food, if it was, you can forage and I think and hunt. It's all out in the wilderness. It's hard to, you can't really, it's hard to really, what do you call it? What's the word? It's harder to what's the word? It's harder to be coercive. I think that's the right word. Ultimately, the origin of hierarchy is through coercion. From what I've looked into, that so let's say you're in a farm or agriculture, and that means people become more specialized, and oftentimes when there's specialization, then people might lose different skills that they had while hunting gathering. So they need certain tools or food in order to survive. While in the hunting gathering area, I mean, there's food and water already there. I mean, of course, people had to work together. I mean, it was not all plentiful, but there wasn't this. But you had the skills to survive, kind of somewhat at least. I guess both on your own, but also with your group. There was not much coercion or a sense of control. But in farming societies, agriculture, then there was far more, because people became a little more specialized, and as well, people were far less independent, and they could be, and if they didn't follow the rules, they could starve to death. Far more easier than during the hunting gathering era. I mean, obviously, again, this is just obviously this is oversimplified, but I think this has been studied, from what I know. So the Christian, they're just so, oh my God, it's just, they think that God gave this rule book down from the sky, as all morality came from, just God. Like, and they also fail to realize that animals can show empathy and care for one another. It's just so dogmatic weird thinking that shames people, that puts people in the boxes. It's terrible. I'm not saying that at the end of the day, I understand why religion was a thing. I mean, it's when before science and before people could actually learn about other creatures and comparing and contrast different societies, and I understand. I mean, it was a mystery about why we're here, and people just assume, oh, it's because of some god and stuff, and it made sense that different hierarchies needed some sort of stability and justification. Sorry, but so I understand why, and I'm not saying that there were people that did helpful things in the name of religion, but people also did harmful things also as well in the name of God too. But it's been shown that, I mean, you don't have to be a Christian or even religious to also do good. Overall, yeah, it's not. This type of thinking is very. It gets me pissed off sometimes, but yeah, of course, people can believe in whatever the heck they want to. But then, if my sister says, "Oh, the way I'm living, it's my religion. This is the best way to live it." What? How arrogant. I mean, that's not anything worth. I mean, there are plenty of people who are doing just fine without Christianity, and sure, there are people who are doing fine with it, but again, it's a complete oversimplification. I mean, some people are doing not fine because of their material conditions. The poor are starving. I mean, unfortunately, there's a lot of mental, what's the word? Mental health issues as well. It's not just I mean, our family. I mean, we were Christian, and we're raised. I mean, okay. I guess. I mean, I had a pretty good, I guess, upper middle class life. I mean, I didn't have any true traumas or headaches. So, to be honest, I had it pretty good, to be honest. But I think that I think that oftentimes that kind of blinds people eventually from sort of looking at other perspectives. I think that theirs is the right one. Now, I understand why some poor people might be, or some people with less access to information and materials, they might believe that their way of life is better. At the end of the day, it's all context driven. Overall, I am not a fan of this thinking. It's all these Christians and super religious folks. They only focus on, all they read is other Christian books. They don't read anything else about science, sociology, evolution, history. They don't really do that. And when they do, it's from this Christian perspective. Or recently, I mean, I just showed my mom the book Why Evolution is True, and she is reading it, but she's looking at the book as, okay, what do I agree with versus what do I disagree with. So they might look at, if you give them like some kind of argument, they'll try to find ways that they'll find ways to debunk it, probably. So, and they want to keep open-minded about sort of the dumbass thinking that they have. Oh yeah. Basically, I think in order to actually hit at the beliefs, I think I do need to look at about, one, some people think that their religion is the right one, and that their life, how they live is right, is the best for humanity. So that's one flaw. I mean, that can easily be refuted. And two, they think that, so I think history and science, I think that's another thing, shows that basically history and science is it makes the religion thing far more complicated than it actually is. So I think that those are ways to sort of look at it. The God question about trying to debunk God, I mean, that's a harder one, probably. I think I start with like debating about God's existence and how it's not true. Again, some people are just, I think that's a little harder for people to give up, because they think that because life is so complicated, biology is complicated, therefore God. Therefore, there had to be a designer, and a lot of people really think that they are communicating with God. I think that's for me, my atheism came up because I reasoned out that there was no God because of all of the logical problems. But for others, no, God is angry. I mean, they have to believe in some sort of God. So I think that's a harder bridge to sell. I think the strategy, in my view, is to sort of poke holes at the very, not necessarily like God per se, but at the very dogmatic thinking. Like the views on sin, the views on human nature that are so rigid and stupid. And yeah, so I think that's a better way of looking at that. Now they say, oh, well, what about Jesus Christ? Well, that's a fact that he rose from dead. Now that's a different topic to look at, but well then I probably point out too. Okay, well then there are many different interpretations about what happened, and there's just a necessity of raised from dead, and all the prophecies so-called are all just retrofitted from what happened later. So yeah, I'll figure out. I mean, in summary, I'm trying to find ways to sort of teach critical thinking in an age of just a lot of nonsense. And like at the end of the day, like, people are busy. It's hard to change your views. I mean, it's hard. I mean, I should be more humble about it. and understand that people have different paths in life. Some people will die just believing God and Christ. You know what? That's just how it is. But I do think that if we truly want less harm in the world, I mean, we have to get rid of this. It's very supremacist to think that they have the truth, others don't have it, and that we are better than others, even though everyone is born in different material conditions, and there's not really free will. That's our discussion. So overall, I'm just giving my thoughts today, and yeah.